we have two distinguished believers who will tell us about our world center. The first will speak of the twin holy cities, the role of the twin holy shrines, and the sacred character of the shrine of Baha'u'llah as the Qibla of the Baha'i world. Neither of these believers wishes to have anything said about him, but you would not want me to forego the opportunity to briefly describe what they have done for us in the Baha'i world, particularly in the service of the Guardian. Our first speaker is Hand of the Cause, Dr. Ugo Giachery. You will recall he was appointed in the first contingent of the Hands on December 24th, 1951. In March of 1952, it was announced to the Baha'i world his appointment as member at large of the International Baha'i Council. Prior to that time, we of the United States could claim him as a member of our community because he lived in New York City. But he answered early the call of the Guardian to pioneer and went out in the second 7-year plan to the European continent and became deeply involved in the opening of the 10 gold countries of Europe. In 1953, he was the Guardian's representative at Stockholm at the Intercontinental Conference. I recall meeting him in Madrid in 1957 at the formation of the Regional National Assembly of the Iberian Peninsula, again acting as the Guardian's representative. He came to Chicago in 1958 to be the appointed representative of the beloved Guardian at the third of the 5 intercontinental conferences. And of course, during the past 5.5 years, he has ably discharged manifold responsibilities connected with the mighty undertaking, first of the Shrine of the Bab during the lifetime of the Guardian, and the International Archives building, but since that time, on many missions for the hands of the cause of God. May I present Hand of the Cause, Dr. Ugo Giachery.
Our chairman has left me speechless, really. Beloved friends, the task which has been assigned to me is a very difficult one. I would like to take you by magic to the Holy Land. I wish I could do that. Those of you who were members of the Convention for the Election of the Universal House of Justice, I must remember they told me to pose every now and then, have a fresh in their heart and their memory the beauty of our spiritual and administrative world center of the faith. But to give you a better understanding of our world center, I should take 5 minutes to tell you that it was not an accident that Baha'u'llah should be exiled to the Holy Land. It is a part of the pattern of a divine scheme. It is a loom of a golden threads, which from there, from far away Iran, through Iraq, Turkey, and the Holy Land have spread all over the world. Briefly, I'd like to tell you that the beloved Master called the Holy Land the nest of the prophets. You know what a nest is. Those who are conversant with the Jewish and Christian teachings, have read the Old and New Testament, will remember all the many prophets which brought light to the world. You see, it's very strange that from the geographical and economical point of view, such a little country, one of the poorest countries in the Near East, should be the seat of God. Why? This is one of the mysteries. Palestine is between two countries. In ancient time, it was between two great countries, Mesopotamia, Babylonia, Egypt on the other side. Life was very difficult for the early Palestinians. I'm speaking of 1,000 years ago. The western winds, which bring rain to the country, stop a little bit far north, at the border of what is Turkey today. The country has very little rain. Famine was a very common occurrence in ancient Palestine. And then the scourges, as you know, the locusts and field mice and so on and so on. These people grew rugged, but they had one insight to turn towards God. They really evolved the first, the most beautiful, the most complete, according to the time, system of worship and a knowledge of the divinity. This is why the setting is in the Holy Land. Now, I'll go to our center. Our distinguished and beloved chairman has told us how Baha'u'llah left Gallipoli on the 20th of August 1868 with his family and some of his followers. And he landed in Akka 10 days later. There starts the saga. There starts the romance, let's call it, of the development of our spiritual and administrative world center of the faith. You all know, all of you know very well the history of the faith. I'm not going to details. But there are certain points that I have to call to your attention. On April 20th, I think between April the 5th and April the 20th of 1890, Baha'u'llah received the visit of a very distinguished Englishman, professor to one of the university here in Cambridge, Professor Brown. You all know that. And in the same year, Baha'u'llah visited Mount Carmel 4 times. History that you can learn from God Passes By. And in one of those visits, which lasted nearly 3 months, his tent was planted on top of Mount Carmel, near the Carmelite monastery, which is called Stella Maris. This is a great importance, because it was in that occasion, and this has been said before in the previous days, it was on that occasion that Baha'u'llah revealed the tablet of the Carmel, which is our Magna Carta, let's call it that way, of our world order, of the establishment of the Universal House of Justice, the famous ark which will sail, which will bring the people of Baha'i. On that same occasion, in one of those occasions, I should say, Baha'u'llah pointed to Abdul Baha the site where the earthly remains of the beloved Bab should find a permanent rest. The body of the Bab had arrived, I think, in the year 1899, a few years before and a few years after the passing of the ascension of Baha'u'llah. It was a long and dramatic, a perilous voyage from Isfahan to Kermanshah to Baghdad and to Damascus. These points are very important to evaluate fully, deeply, the spiritual value of these twin cities, as the dear chairman mentioned. In August, in the early months of 1901, Abdul Baha was incarcerated again, because he had started the construction of the shrine of the Bab of Mount Carmel. You know, he was accused of building a fortress, he was accused of making an ammunition depot and so on, so he was incarcerated again. And it was not possible to proceed with the work of the construction of the shrine. For those of you who have been in Holy Land, visited the mansion of Baha'i, have seen some of the early photographs taken at that time, where there was a barren rocks, barren land, not a tree, and a few stones have been brought into place for the construction of the shrine. There is the episode of the master having great difficulty for the purchase of the plot of the land. And as the beloved garden reveals or narrate in the God Passes By, the master prayed all night. He said a prayer over the Bab, but didn't say which one. The owner of the land did not want to send him the land. But after the master prayed all night, the man came in the morning, apologized, begged his pardon, and say, please now buy the land. It was only after the beloved master's freedom. You remember, as a young child of 9, he went into exile. Took him 63 years to have one first Nowruz free. And it was the Nowruz of the year 1909. By that time, the shrine had been completed. The body of the Bab had been composed in sarcophagus sent by the friends from Burma. And it was enshrined in the bosom, as the beloved guardian said, of God's holy mountain. And for the Friends of America, it is very important that date, because on that they are again the golden threads which are connecting the world center of the faith to the other parts of the world. In that particular date, the first convention took place in Chicago of American Baha'is. And in that convention, it was decided to build the Master Askar of America. You see, the friends, how the evolvement of this spiritual, what we call breeze, wind, power, force. Speaking of the construction of the shrine of the Bab, the way it was, consisting at the time of 6 rooms, the master said every stone of the building, every stone of the road leading to it, I have with infinite tears and tremendous cost raised and placed in position. You must read those moving words, moving episode which is in God Passes By. The beloved guardian, commenting on this episode, and the beloved guardian was present at the time, defined this great happening that is the placing of the Bab remains in the sarcophagus and in the shrine. He defined it as the return of Elijah. And he says on the west it was the cave of Elijah. And on the east, the hills of the Galilee. And it was facing the white silver city of Akka. The beloved guardian says this is the spot around which the concourse on high circle in adoration. And then he mentions some of the words of Baha'u'llah. Haste thee, O Carmel, for the light of the divine countenance of God has been lifted upon thee. Rejoice, for God has in this day established upon thee his throne. You know, you cannot have a conception of a celestial world without having music. This might not be pertinent, you might think, but it is. I thought it is pertinent. You know, some of the most beautiful instruments which are still used today to make music were born in old Palestine over 1,000 years ago. I told our beloved chairman here, who is a great musician, I said, I'm going to say something that you will like it. And the lyre, the harp, the zither, the flute, the oboe, the trumpet, the famous shafar of the Jews, and the cymbals, they come from ancient Palestine. And you can, in this world of magic, just hear this instrument playing most beautiful tune to give you the atmosphere on which I'm presenting to you these holy places. And the saga of building up these holy places continues. Here I have to make a parenthesis. In 1921, our beloved guardian takes the helm of the ship. A young man suddenly becomes the head of the most dynamic religious movement of the world in the history of mankind. And he has one idea, one great idea. Honor the central figures of the faith. Honor them. And enhance the prestige of the faith. And so he embarked himself in a work of beautification. Friends, I cannot describe to you. The chairman told me I have 15 to 20 minutes, and I think I'm going over the time already. I cannot tell you. I cannot describe to you. But what Sheikh Effendi accomplished, other men could not have accomplished in centuries. Not 1, 2 centuries, 3, 4, 5 centuries, they could not have accomplished it. One of our dear hands, Mr. Collis Featherstone from Australia, he can witness to what I'm saying because I knew it before he knew it. But that this reputable condition in which I kept the holy Christian places is unbelievable. We know why? Because the spiritual center is there, where the life of Jesus evolved with these 3 years of stewardship, of a prophetism, what you would call it. And the administrative center has moved to another part of the world and is grown in many material ways, but it has shrunk in very many spiritual ways. And that is the reason why. But the beloved guardian has this vision to establish forever a place where both the administrative and the spiritual one will go hand in hand, and it will be of example to the entire religious world. This is the parenthesis I made, because there is another episode of importance. In the year 1939, after much difficulties, you can refer to beloved guardian's messages. He was able, in one place which is part of, he called it the monumental garden of Mount Carmel, he was able to transfer the remains of the purest branch of the mother of the master, Nawab, Buyukhanum. And they were transferred on Mount Carmel, which the beloved guardian on that occasion called the spiritual. He sent to the world a message which is called the spiritual potency of that consecrated spot. I'm not going to tell you that because our next speaker is going to mention that to you. But the beloved guardian called on that occasion that land called the vineyard of God, the vineyard of the Lord, the most holy land, the center of the world, the Qibla, that is the point of adoration of all nations, the retreat of Elijah. Remember, he considered the return of the body of the Baba as the return of Elijah. The most holy court, the holy of the holies, and the most greatest of all, the pearl of a great price. Friends, to understand the interest of the world in our spiritual and administrative world center of the faith and the sacred character of these places, one little detail will bring the point. The Israel government has exempted them of the taxes. Why? Because they are truly holy places. Some time ago, again the hand of a destiny, the pattern of a God is at work. Some time ago I found a little verse from the Old Testament pointing directly to the holy mountain, that is Mount Carmel. It is in Exodus 15, number 17. There are just 3 lines. and says, the mountain of their inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell, the sanctuary, O Lord, which the hands have established. And what are the hands? The hands of the Master, the hands of Shogh Effendi have established the seat of the Lord to dwell in on Mount Carmel. And you know, I don't want to go into details. Someone thought this was Mount Zion. But because the cult of Baal at one time it was on Mount Carmel, and it makes a reference to him, it is definitely Mount Carmel. Friends, it's impossible in the time I've left to go any further, but we heard about the twin holy cities. Akka is where the great prison is, the house of abode. But outside of Akka, there are two buildings of a great importance. One is Mazrahe, and the other one is Baji. These are the twin buildings, but nearby is the greatest center of world faith, that is the shrine of Baha'u'llah. I cannot describe to you personally my impression, because they are a pilgrim's impression. But it is an overpowering force that takes you when you are nearer to that place. Those are the friends who were recently can witness to that. It is the place, as our chairman said, which is the center, the spiritual center of the world. Now, yes, we are a few thousand, few hundred of a thousand. I don't know how many we are. But in the future, the entire world will be turning towards Akka, towards that spot for solace, for comfort, for faith. We have part of the spiritual center of the faith, the gardens of Rizwan and Firdaus. You remember, was the first house to where Baha'u'llah went as soon as he was able to leave the prison. We have twin pilgrim houses, one for the Eastern Friends, one for the Western Friends in Haifa. We have the house of the Master, where the Friends gather for the election of the Universal House of Justice. We have the International Archives. It's the unique institution in the world. Friends, I have gone around the world in many places. I live in Rome, where there is all the greatest collection of religious Christian history that you can imagine. But I never seen anything so beautiful, so complete, so perfect as the International Archives, where all the relics, all the mementos, all the writings, everything which was connected with the herald, with the founder, with the example, and with the beloved guardian, are gathered in the most beautiful and perfect environments. And then we have this great ark, which goes from the shrine of the Bab to the tomb of the greatest holy leaf. This is the ark the guardian refers to when he says that the great institutions of the faith, the administrative institutions of the faith, will be erected along this ark. I won't going to stop now to tell you that as Baha'is, we have to have great pride. We must be humble in many thousands ways, but we must be very proud, because we have a tangible, spiritual, and administrative world center of the faith which is unequaled anywhere, no matter which faith you bring. We must walk erect with the head high. We must have this vision of a far, far distant vision of the great victory the faith is going to experience. That's the way our beloved guardian was. That's why he succeeded, because I think his vision was fixed in the fastest stars of the universe. And his zeal, his courage, his love permitted him to accomplish what he accomplished in his 36 years of stewardship. And I'll finish with some words which I have taken from the Dome Breakers. I think you all know them. It is not an invitation to you to be real martyrs giving your blood, but it is an invitation to you to be martyrs serving the cause. Whoso seeks me shall find me. Whoso findeth me shall be drawn to me. Whoso draweth nigh unto me shall love me. Whoso loves me, him shall I also love. He who is beloved of me, him shall I slay. He who is slain by me, I myself be his ransom.